System Interplay. Ugh, can't speak today. We've talked about this whole interplay thing in the past. I just thought I'd go over it a little bit further and hopefully not confuse you anymore. Yeah. So you can see in the graph here that we've talked about that the energy systems, they all start working at the same time together. So if you're looking at this graph, you can see that quite clearly they all start working at the same time. It's just how much of a contribution are they making to, any sort of activity. So if it's really short duration, generally speaking, they'll probably be pretty sort of explosive sort of movements, in which case you would use just the ATP, which is stored within the muscles, and that's gone really quick. But with these creatine phosphate stores, okay, that's the fuel for the ATP PC system. You can replenish that ATP over and over again for a period of up to about 30 seconds. And then as the activity continues, different systems will get, used at different points in time. So let's have a look at it. So like I said, they all work together. It's not like a light switch. One doesn't start and then turn off, and then another one starts and then turn off. I know I've said that in the past. It's not a light switch. Okay, they all overlap. Okay, they're never working, like it says there. They never work independently. There's always some contribution from one or more of the systems. Okay, and the dominant system, it says predominant there, but apparently, I was listening to a webinar the other day. They don't actually talk about predominant and dominant anymore. There used to be a difference between the two. And you might be able to hear my little boy yelling and screaming. I reckon he's going to come in any second. Here he is. Okay, apparently he won $400,000, so he was pretty excited about that. So anyway, there's no dominant, predominant anymore. It's using the one word. So they talk about which energy system is dominant at that point in time, or which energy system is dominant for the 400-meter event. Okay, so the dominant system is determined by the intensity and the duration of the event. That's it. If someone is completing a very low intensity, short duration activity, you'll probably find that it'll use the muscular stores of ATP, might even use fats as the energy source, but generally speaking, you would use the ATP, the muscular stores. Moving on. So we talk about this overlap. There's always some sort of overlap. Okay, and if you look at the chart, once I move my buffet out of the way, you can see the relative contributions for each of the energy systems for for a whole range of sports. We've got swimming covered, we've got soccer, we've got skiing, gymnastics, football, hockey, basketball, whatever it might be. You can see that there is always some sort of contribution from one or more energy systems. So walking, for example, 95% of it is aerobic, 5% might be anaerobic, 0% apparently ATP PC, but it's usually kept in place for explosive activities. So anything that's explosive, really short duration, like jumping or hopping or any of those sort of powerful things, it's going to be ATP. Interestingly enough, you look at soccer, for example, you've got 50% ATP PC contributions because there are a lot of short sprints, short efforts, and then sort of 20 and 30% for the other two systems. You look at swimming 100 meters, 80% ATP, 15 anaerobic glycolysis, and 5% aerobic. The 5% aerobic you'll probably find would be used at the end of the event during that epoch stage in recovery. So ATP, body has stores readily available. It's stored in the muscles and it lasts about 2 to 3 seconds. After that, that's when we start using that phospho-creatine to replenish the ATP that's stored in the muscles. Oh, this homeschooling is killing me. It's probably killing you as well. So we add the phospho-creatine, which is the PC is the fuel that we use to replenish the ATP. So basically what happens is that PC store is used to replenish the ATP within the body. Okay, and we have about a 10-second store. It's used for high intensity explosive activities, 100-meter sprints, 100-meter swimming, you know, like I said before, jumping, hopping, all those sort of things. Okay, eventually it runs out. Like I said, it's only a very short duration activity, and once that happens, if the intensity still remains high, then you'll start working anaerobically until the aerobic energy system has time to increase its contributions to the production of fuel. So moving on from there, we get to the anaerobic glycolysis system. It creates more ATP from the fuel that's available. Okay, it creates 2 as opposed to 1 or 0.7, and it's created quickly. Trouble is, there's byproducts, and we've looked at these byproducts in the past. They're the hydrogen ions and the lactate. Okay, it's actually the hydrogen ions that stop the muscles from contracting, which is why your legs start feeling like jelly and they get really quite weak. So what happens is the pH of your blood becomes more acidic. So again, it's used for high intensity activities like we were talking about before. If you are performing a sprint, it's going to be a maximal effort. It's going to be a flat out sprint. You're working above that 85% of your max heart rate. Okay, that's where that's going to be useful. Okay, it lasts longer than the ATP PC, and it's going to be dominant somewhere between that sort of that 15 to a minute 15 seconds. The other thing it will do is it will help out from time to time. It'll help out with the aerobic energy system. Another car example, much like let's say a nitrous system on a car. So have a look at this clip.
Pursuit has entered flood control adjacent to 710 freeway.
Where's that air unit?
Requesting air unit, same location.
So here we are, the
Air 1.
bodies
We're open for pursuit.
running along.
Suspect traveling southbound at 9 miles an hour.
There needs to be an increase in intensity.
Stay with them, Air 1.
I'm all over it. Suspect has increased speed to 120.
Maintain visual, Air 1.
140 miles an hour.
Do not lose him.
This is an A-Star, sir, not an Apache. 150. 160. He's gone.
God! Man, this guy can drive. What? It's probably mostly the car.
Who doesn't love Gone in 60 seconds? So, running along, doing his aerobic thing, needs that sudden burst of energy. The anaerobic glycolysis system kicks in. It's like that boost that you need. So what will actually happen is the body will start producing lactate and hydrogen ions and give you that little bit extra that you need to maybe catch up to someone or get away from someone, whatever it might be. And then when the intensity drops, because remember it's determined by intensity and duration, when the intensity drops, then the body will gradually return to that steady state that we talked about where the oxygen supply is meeting the demand. And then from there, it'll begin to work aerobically again. Already seen that. Finally, the aerobic system. Okay, this is the one that takes the most time to get going, but when it does, it produces the most power. Okay, so it's like, the big semi-trailer, the trains, they take a long time to get going as opposed to, your motorcycles and your cars and all that sort of stuff. But once they're moving, they're pulling a lot of weight. They're doing a lot of work and they're contributing a lot of energy. So after about 75 seconds of activity, the body's had time to, build up steam more and more and more, and gradually work its way into working aerobically, provided that the intensity remains less than that 85%. And this 85%, it's only a best guess kind of thing. You can train it, you can move it, okay, which we'll look at a little bit later on. But yeah, so it's still going to be the dominant system, okay? It's still producing the bulk of that energy, but the aerobic energy system, the anaerobic energy system, the anaerobic glycolysis energy system is just filling the gap between, here and up here. Okay, so the aerobic energy system might be doing, say, 80% of the work, but then the anaerobic glycolysis system is going to finish off that last sort of 20% in the marathon or whatever it might be. It also gets used during recovery. So it's helpful in removing those waste products, and it helps to resynthesize those PC stores that have been used at the very start of the event, because unless you have that period of rest, you don't replenish the stores. So, like I said, I was listening to a webinar probably a week or so ago, and they were talking about dominant and predominant, and supposedly it's not used anymore. But it might just be worth noting it, because look, changes do get made, people make mistakes, all that sort of thing. So dominant referred to the energy system that was supplying energy at any given point in time. So if we stopped a race, a 400-meter race or an 800-meter race, whatever it was, and said, okay, at 65 seconds, what is going to be the dominant system at this point in time, this very point in time? Okay, you would say, okay, well, it might be the anaerobic glycolysis system. But then the predominant energy system was the one that provided the energy for the duration, the whole event, the big picture. Okay, so if you look at the example there, the 200 meters takes 19.19 seconds to run. ATP is going to be the predominant system during the event, and at the finishing line, the anaerobic glycolysis system will be the dominant energy system. Okay, because ATP has started to, it started on that downward curve. The anaerobic glycolysis is starting on that upward curve. So interplay, how does it all work? We have our energy demand, okay? We have our aerobic energy, and then we have our blood lactate levels. We've got 50% of max heart rate here, and we've got 85% of max heart rate here. So you can see that the energy demand has gone up. Right? So we were working at a steady state where the energy was meeting the supply, the blood rate was staying relatively low, but what happens is, with the increased demand in energy, the anaerobic glycolysis system, it kicks in to make up that last little bit that they were requiring. And as a result, the blood lactate increases as well. I can show you an interesting webinar which details this as well, and we'll learn about the lactate inflection point in the, I think it's the next video that I'll create. So if we compare all the energy systems, okay, and this is straight out of your textbook. I think the textbook gives you a little bit more information, but you have your fuels and for each of the systems. You have your intensities, you have the dominant duration, you have the total system duration, you have the amount of ATP that gets produced. So you can see down here that there are large amounts of ATP, 38 from carbohydrates and greater than 100. It's actually about 440, 460 ATP that it's produced from one triglyceride molecule, but it takes a long time to break it all down. Okay, and then you got your ATP that doesn't even produce 1.7. So have a look at that table on 125, 126, and thanks for watching.